Hello and welcome to the second episode of the South Downs Leisure podcast, where we're going to try to focus on all things SDL, all things fitness related, and sort of any topics that we come up that we think you might find interesting. So today we're going to be sort of unpacking our January message a little bit, which is going to be a lot more focused around joyful movement. As we come into a new year, it's always really easy to get bogged down in all of the new year, new me messaging. And this year we wanted to be a little bit different, and we wanted to sort of find ways that people could access exercise in kind of a more meaningful, more enjoyable way that will hopefully give you longer lasting results. So I'm joined by Jo and Ed today, and I'm going to hand over to Jo to tell us a little bit about herself.
I'm Jo Clarke, and obviously most people know me as a fitness instructor here at South Downs Leisure. I'm also, though, the exercise referral consultant here, so I work with people with medical conditions who need a bit of more support getting into exercise or around weight loss. And I also run weight loss groups because there's always been felt there's a need and a demand for weight loss. And it's very interesting because I'm sort of looking at changing the message of that as we go into the new year in 2023 and move away a little bit about weight being the goal and the reduction in weight being the goal, because evidence indicates that 75% of people who diet fail. So why would we really encourage people to do something they're not going to get that positive feeling from? It's all about joyful January. So we want to change it a little bit, from my perspective, around maybe eating behaviours and exercising, doing things that are going to have positive benefits and a positive feeling.
Hi, so my name's Ed Wain, and I'm the duty manager at Southwick Leisure Centre and fitness advisor. A little bit about myself. I qualified as a spin instructor. Liked it so much, I then became more involved as a gym instructor, qualified in that area, and like Jo, with exercise referral in that field as well. So my focus really is older people fitness, because I appreciate as time goes by, we all start to think about where we are with our life cycles of fitness.
And I also realised I didn't actually introduce myself. And I'm Hannah, and I work here at South Downs Leisure in the marketing team and the business development. And I'm coming to this from very much a place of having had a real shift in mindset over the last sort of year or so, I'd say, about sort of body image and issues around diet culture and stuff like that. And I've had a real personal change in this kind of sphere. So I'm really interested in it, and I'm really quite passionate about kind of helping people kind of see kind of the lies that you're sold, without sounding really dramatic, about diet culture and weight loss, and kind of really I would love to see more people, women especially, but men also, kind of start to heal that kind of relationship that they have with food and have with their bodies. And just because I found it so empowering that I would love to see other people have that too. That's kind of where I'm come to this from.
I think we have to remember that since sort of the 1960s, 70s, we've been fed this message to be thin is to be good. Women in particular, slim is what is desirable. And there's two ways this annoys me. One, it sets this ideal that is actually really unachievable for 90% of us. So we're constantly striving. And I know for me personally, from the age of 15, I have watched my weight, and that might be around food or around exercise. And I know there's many people who, come here that are in the same boat. And it's just, and I had to, like Hannah, just had this moment, I'm in my 50s, menopausal, and I'm the heaviest I've ever been. Even though I exercise regularly, I watch what I eat. And there had to be a point where I go, well, am I prepared to exercise even more? And quite frankly, I don't have the time. Am I prepared to eat even less and to go without chocolate? And again, I'm not prepared to do those things. So I have to accept this now, and this is who I am for now. And I just wish I'd had that message 40, 30 years ago. And I look at youngsters that now who are striving and worrying about their weight, and I want to tell them that there's no point, particularly as a woman. Your body is going to change all the way through puberty. In your 20s, you have children, then you might be able to lose the weight afterwards, but you will struggle to do it. And then you hit the 50s and your menopause, and then it becomes a real challenge. And so that would be a battle. It's time consuming, it's energy draining, and mentally. And how much stress you bring to yourself, how much guilt you put on your own shoulders when you can't really do much about it.
And I think it's so important to remember that, like, diet culture as an industry, as a business. So, like in the US, I think it's worth upwards of $60 to $70 billion a year that people make on diet related products, plans, that sort of stuff. And I think in the UK, I think it's about 2 billion. But when you think of the size of the island and the size of the population, that's an astronomical amount of money. And you have to always remember that when someone's trying to sell you something, like they have something to gain from that, and that is your money. And people don't want you to be okay with yourself because they have a lot to gain from making you feel like you're not okay with yourself. And that is a really horrible, sad fact, but it's the truth. So once you kind of are able to disconnect from that somewhat and like start to try and make that connect more with your own body and your own mind, and make your own decisions about what's okay, and that it is okay to gain weight, and that it's not shameful to eat the foods you like when you fancy them. It just unveils this whole kind of new way of thinking. But that's not what society, diet culture, the media, that's not what they want. They want you to feel insecure so that you continue to spend this money on it.
Being okay with yourself, it doesn't earn them any money.
Exactly.
So, no.
You mentioned about going from, shall I say, puberty through to now, okay, from a male point of view, I was very fit when I was younger, and then you go through the family cycle, and I was one of those dads that was 18 stone, all because I'm eating the everyday foods that maybe have been left over by the kids. Oh, we're not going to waste that. We've got to have that one, And then the kids grow up, and then suddenly you think, well, actually, my diet's changed, But running has really put it in for me to get me out there, and it's just enormous sense of achievement, of wellness. Great for even on the treadmill, just so good to get your mind flowing, and you start to calm down, and you start to think, actually, I'm okay, I'm good at running, and I feel comfortable with it. But yeah, so your body goes through different stages, but as soon as you stop, literally as soon as you stop, your body then starts to readjust itself, and without you realising.
But it's also about learning as a human that is okay. Like it's okay. It's okay to go through different stages in your life. It's okay to gain weight. It's not shameful. It doesn't, like, your self-worth as a human being, there's no morality attached to food, and that is such a big thing that everybody does it. I'm being good. I can't have this is bad. But I've fallen off the wagon. I've done, all this language attached around it. Yes. But actually it's food doesn't have a moral value. It's fuel, but it is fuel, but it's also culture, it's socializing, it's enjoyment, it's pleasure for a lot of people. It's nutrition. I've really tried to get my head around, especially, and I always think about the fact that I've got a 2-year-old little girl, and I think about how I want her to feel about her body. So I try more around language, about like nutrient dense and less nutrient dense, because that's trying to unpack that language a little bit so that she's not feeling naughty because she's eating a piece of chocolate, and it's fine, that's normal, and it's absolutely okay. But you have the more nutrient dense foods too, like I just think there's room for all, and the more you start restricting, the more of a thing it becomes in your mind. And then you can, it's like someone put a button down here now and said, don't press that button or don't think about that button. All we would all start thinking about is that button. So once you kind of, it's almost like you take its power, and then it becomes so much easier to manage.
I've been running weight loss groups for probably about 8 years, and the message is changing now. For me, it's about not the number on the scales, it's about the positive behaviour changes. Are we eating 4 or 5 a day of fruit and veg? Because people are stressing about the cake that they've eaten, but not putting that same amount of energy into the positive behaviours that will feel good. And I'm like, let's focus on something we can feel good about at the end of the day. Yeah, I've had my 5 a day.
What can you add? That's another thing that I've done a lot. What can you add rather than what can you take away from your diet?
I mean, any of my groups, I always start by saying nothing is off limits. Never do I ever put anything off limits, because like you say, the minute you do that, that's all people want. So nothing's off limits, but moderation and balance, that whole package, being realistic. We are all going to have what counts as a treat for us. There's times we're all going to have a birthday, we're all going to celebrate Christmas or Easter, wedding anniversaries, happy times, which are going to generally often involve food. But we shouldn't feel guilty about that.
No, just the same as if you have a really rubbish day and you go home and you're like, I can't be able to cook, let's order a pizza. And that's, that's normal. That is normal human behaviour. And it's just, it becomes problematic when you have that, and then because you're having that and you think, right, this is it now, I'm never allowed this thing ever again. So you eat so much of it that, you get to a point of physical unpleasantness, shall we say, and that's binging, and that's kind of a whole other aspect to it. But if you know that you can have that and you can have it again tomorrow if you want, you'll have as much of it as feels physically pleasant, and then you'll stop. And that's kind of the goal, I think.
So, and then it's those behaviours that link to that, if overindulgence, the sense of shame, that then leads to that, right, well, I'm going to have more. And how we then can often punish ourselves, either by then going and working out and running a few extra miles the next day or whatever, or, purging in the worst case scenario, or cutting down really significantly the next day to make it I'm not going to eat all day. How many people going out for their Christmas meals are going, well, I'm not eating all day till I just have that Christmas meal. The thing is, then you go out to that meal, you're starving hungry, and you just, pudding starter and main course. And
so it's talking about balance, really, isn't it?
Totally.
So,
always the balance, the whole package, being honest, being realistic. Accept the good and highs and lows.
If someone does have an issue with food, where they do feel out of control around food, it then becomes an issue of they personally need to work on themselves as to why that is that they turn to food in times of hardship and stuff like that, and so many people do it, but that's kind of like that. There are probably many different reasons that people turn to food, and that's like a personal thing to unpack for each individual.
We're hardwired. When a baby cries, what do? We feed it. So we're hardwired from the cradle that food is a comfort. As it happens, sugar and fat combined give us that happy. That's a chemical that we as humans have made, and we give that to ourselves. We feed that to ourselves often. So that is there at the base level. So how do we unpick that and prevent that need? And I often also try and educate people around hunger and emotional eating, because hunger is something sustained. If you're hungry, your tummy will rumble and it won't go away. If it's an emotional eating and you pause, it may dissipate, and then you understand the difference between what's going on for you in terms of food. But you do have to recognise the difference.
It's also really hard for chronic dieters and people with severe disordered eating, because over time you do disrupt the hormones that give you those hunger cues and fullness cues as well. So that is one of the reasons why when people then stop dieting for a period of time, they tend to gain more weight, because their body is confused about knowing when it's full, or are you going to listen to me when I tell you I'm hungry, and then you go into kind of,
and it will store it because it doesn't know the next time you're going to do it. So we go to caveman mode. Food's there.
You eat whenever you're
Take
hungry,
it on,
and your body learns that
it'll be
it's
there.
not in some kind of extreme,
And
survival mode.
And our mindsets are on the, should we say, the visuals, the marketing, the packet of crisps, the whatever it is that you're picking up, the Jaffa cakes, and suddenly you see it, oh yeah, I'll have that. But actually your body doesn't actually read that. Your body is just digesting whatever's going in your mouth, and that's it. And it's and if your metabolism is high or low, it's going to digest it in a way that is either going to add or take away from your body. So, yeah.
So I guess thinking joyful January, how do we change? So I certainly, in my groups, I am stepping away from the bottom line on the scales. I don't think it's realistic to step away completely, because this is an inherent behaviour that we all are striving. Even I say I accept my body, but I know I don't want to get any bigger. So I'm trying to just keep it on. So it is about behaviour change for me in terms of the eating, making sure I'm doing as many positive things as I possibly can, accepting the other stuff. And with exercise, doing what you enjoy. That's what I always tell my clients. My exercise referral clients, when they come to me and they've not done exercise before, and I'm like, what do you like doing? What do you think? Gym or classes? Now, as an instructor, well, I'm a personal trainer as well, but my heart is in the classroom, in that group setting with lots of people. And I do find a lot of women like that side of things. But for some people, the gym, when they can go when they want, they do what they want, they can put the headphones in. Well, like you, Hannah, when you just go for a run, that's what works for you. And it's about working out, what do you enjoy? Because if you're not enjoying it, you won't do it. If you're not getting any pleasure, so what's the point?
This is it. And then your mindset, when you're working out and you've got your whole routine going, and then suddenly you stop, and because you're so focused on the workings out and what you're eating and so on, and then suddenly you stop, and it's like this huge guilt. And even I can't tell you. I my
too far the other way, can't it? Where you it becomes sort of like an obsession, and it shouldn't. It should be like. I mean, there are so many, like, again, talking about getting rid of that, scale. I mean, a lot of people say, ditch the scales completely. I mean, I haven't. I do still weigh myself regularly, but I try to be really neutral about that number, and just it's more of for me, it's because I don't want that to rule me either. That, like, I don't weigh myself. I don't want to have any extremes. That's I
hate the effect that number has on me. And obviously I see this every week in my classes when people come in, and if it goes up, they just feel so disappointed with themselves. And I try and explain, it could be hormones, it could be what you had last night. If it was particularly salty or carby, you're holding on more water. Now, I know that.
That's the good one. I like
that. But, Joe Bloggs, who's getting on the scales, doesn't know that, and just sees a number and then leaves
and
going.
It takes their whole day after that. And that's the really sad thing, I think.
And so that's why I want to step away from it. And understand.
How would you bring that into your groups then? So would you say to everybody, right, there's the weighing scale, we're all here, right? There's the weighing scale. Now, in their mindset, they think they've come to their first diet class and they're going to stand on that weighing scale. But are you going to tell them?
I have people, they don't get on the scales, they don't want to. And I'm like, that's cool. Particularly if they've known things haven't gone their way that week, then why put yourselves up? They know that. They're feeling bad enough as it is without a number to confirm it. So it's no. So I'm planning once a month. I don't think we need to do it weekly.
Use that a month.
Women's bodies particularly change in a month. And that relates directly to the hormone fluctuations. So again, why go put ourselves through it on a weekly basis? So we're going to look at it month, and it's about those behaviour changes. Have you done a class? Have you done 2 classes maybe? Are we eating? Are we closing the kitchen at 8 o'clock? Are we managing to do that? Just little silly little things that we can actually achieve, hopefully, and feel good about our achievements.
Well, there's so many of these kind of weight loss classes. Takes sort of Slim and Wild and Weight Watchers, those kinds of things, where you literally go, and if you've lost weight, you get a clap or a sticker and I've done these. I've done these because, and on the weeks when you gain weight, you and in front of a class, what happened? Shame. What happened this week? And it's like, well, because your diet plan is, you say easy and whatever, but it's obviously not. Otherwise, everybody would only ever have to do it once, and then they'd be fine, and it would be fixed. For example, Slim and World at the moment have got an ad campaign out that says all past users can come for free, which should just be an indictment that it doesn't work, because otherwise their past users wouldn't need to come back because they'd have already cracked it. Exactly. So it's and then but then it's all based on this feeling of that hyper, when you've lost weight, that feeling this is I feel so proud of myself. And then if you haven't lost weight or you've gained weight, it's that shame and that guilt that comes with that. But if you can sort of learn to connect with your body differently, especially in terms of finding joyful movement, for example, and the benefits of exercise, the high you get from doing a class or a really good run. And for me, my running at the moment is atrocious because I've got a 2-year-old, not that it's an excuse, but I've got a 2-year-old, and I don't get the time at the moment that I would like to have to properly get back into it. But that feeling of the endorphin surges and how you feel for the rest of the day, that's better than any kind of number on the scales for me. And that's something that is absolutely achievable every single day if you want it to be, without your weight dictating your mood, or however big or small or whatever you are. You can do those small things every day that give you that same sense of purpose and feeling good about yourself, that have nothing to do with what you look like and what you weigh. And I think that's kind of the key thing.
Yeah, because we've talked about food and its issues, but exercise can be an issue as well, and we can overdo it. And I know I've seen that. And to be honest, it was actually sort of a little bit of our ethos sort of 8 years ago. How many classes can you do back to back? 4 or 5. And I was part of that culture. If I managed to do 7 classes in a day, you'll get me. Yes. But that was my way of managing my weight back then, because I wasn't prepared to give up the chocolate. And I hear that. I hear that from people still now.
It was interesting because when I was a member here, this is going back, 10 years ago, when I first started as a member, and I just remember somebody saying here at reception, if it's your day off, you could work the classes, so you could spend all day here just going from one class to the other. And I tried that, and that's how I then became a spinning addict. I was going to the morning classes and the evening classes because it was just outside either side of my work frame, and it was great, and I absolutely loved it. But
we do, and we get such and I think there's, particularly around 40 or something, I think when your kids are a little bit older and you gain that freedom, it'll happen, Hannah, it'll happen. Then it becomes a little bit more about you. And I've got friends in that age bracket now, and they're all comparing their notes on how much stuff they've done on their devices. And I look at them and thinking, was I like that? And unfortunately, I probably was, but I now look at them and go, that's a little bit sad to be dictated and driven so much by exercise because you're striving for that ultimate image. Exercise per se, I love, and that's why I'm in the industry, because it can make you happy. You're in a shabam class and you're being silly. You feel strong in a pump class when you're lifting serious weights. Spin class, you're going crazy climbing those hills. It can bring that pleasure, but I think it should be for the pleasure of doing that activity, not because you had a pizza last night, you need to burn off 1,000 calories.
It takes the joy out of it, doesn't it? And that's what we're trying to refine is the joy.
So it really comes to goals and planning, because I think once you've got a SMART goal in place, then you're more likely to achieve it. So even if you have your adverse days or your relapse days where you think, oh, I'm going to have that pizza today, and then suddenly you feel bad for 2 or 3 days, but actually you can allow for that. So give yourself a good 2 or 3 month plan, if not longer.
I kind of disagree in a way, because I kind of feel like have the pizza, move on. Like it doesn't have to be planned for. There doesn't have to be like, well, I can't have that because I haven't planned for it. It's not part of it should literally be, this is what I'm having. I'm not restricting myself in any way. This is what I'm having. It's been had. Let's move on. And tomorrow I'm going to exercise because it's going to make my brain feel good for the day, and it's going to give me the energy I need to chase my 2-year-old around. Like that's the, for me, I mean, I don't, it's different.
When Ed was doing that as a personal trainer, that is what you get taught. And as a weight loss coach, set smart goals. My reality is more with you, Hannah. I start a class off, they'll put the music on and everyone's tapping their Fitbits and their phones. And again, I can't say I haven't been there sort of a decade ago. But I don't monitor anything because they lie as well. They tell you burnt 500 calories and you really haven't. But it just makes me smile, because every time you do a combat class, you probably burn the same amount of calories pretty much. Not enough to make a big difference.
But also it does, and it has impacted me, the kind of tracking, because the reason ultimately that I started running in the first place is because I knew that it was a surefire way to burn calories, and I knew that. And when I was kind of in this more kind of diet culture state of mind, I guess, that was what I would do. And I wouldn't do anything that wasn't a high calorie burn exercise, which is probably why I do steer towards the more high impact stuff nowadays, even, because like a Pilates class, I'd be like, well, no, what's the point? I'm not going to burn the calories. Totally. I'm not going to burn the calories that my fitness pal is later going to then tell me I've got to eat.
I remember lying in a body balance class going, well,
this is a waste of my time. But now I do a bit of Pilates and I feel, because I use the Apple Fitness Plus stuff sometimes. I probably shouldn't say that, should I? I mean, I use the Fit 4 on demand. If I do a bit at home, and I do it because it feels really nice. It's nice to stretch your body. It's nice to feel your core working, and it's just like, and I feel a lot more connected to my body in that way now, and I think that's quite.
My running as well. It helps. Pilates. It's great. I do it at least once a week. And it stretches your body out in different ways, and you're right, it doesn't burn the calories.
But do you know, when you stretch a muscle, it releases the same happy hormones that running does, and any sort of high intensity thing. That action of stretching a muscle releases the same hormones. So you need to come to yoga, Ed, and you'll be walking out there with a big smile on your face.
But if I had any flexibility, I'm like a broomstick.
Where we need
flexibility.
And remember, but that is another element of fitness. We're focusing on the cardiovascular fitness. That's what's important, to burn calories. But it isn't the only form of fitness. Strength is a form of fitness. Being able to lift our weights, particularly as we get older. Menopausal women, or women, any woman any person from the age of 40, we start to lose our muscle mass. But women in particular, with what's changing with our hormones and our bones, we really need strength in our life. Things like body pump and going to the gym, lifting weights, great. But yoga was included in that because you're lifting your own body weight. Flexibility is also another element of fitness. Why can we not get pride from that? I know, I hear you. You can't. You've got no flexibility, but that is an amazing goal to build on that. And you might not want it now, Hannah. No. Give it another 10
I
or
do.
20
I
years.
do want it. I do want it. It's just, I've never, and again, have never focused on that side of fitness for me, because that wasn't going to buy me the calories to eat the Mars bar after dinner. So I did, and that's what it was always an exchange. It was a way up of, if I do this now, I can have this later, and
you were
still
not
be
alone.
within.
I can tell members out there again. Well, I'm not going to do yoga because there's a spin class and I'll burn 500 calories if I'm lucky. But again, reframing this. if it brings you pleasure, joyful January, then maybe we should be looking at some of these different things.
People say, and it annoys me as well, this is a very fitness thing. There's 24 hours in every day, 24, and everybody has the same 24 hours, and it's not the case, because I would love to get up at 6. I used to be a 6 o'clock gym person, 6 o'clock running, 6 o'clock out, but I just can't do that anymore. It just doesn't work for me in my lifestyle. So and it does change things. So I think like a really key thing, and I'm definitely not the only person in that boat. And I think the key thing with that is again trying to find a pocket in the day. And also, like for me, I when on the times when I have been able to exercise recently, like the thing it does for my brain afterwards and how I feel afterwards, I'd always say to my husband, like, remind me how I feel now, when tomorrow I feel like, oh, I don't know if I can be bothered, because sometimes it's just that getting out, isn't it? It's that forcing yourself, even if you don't really feel like it, I guess, but just remembering that kind of feeling that comes.
And also, I think people think they need to go for an hour or 2, and if they can't do that, it's not worth doing. Now, as a Meno-fit instructor, particularly for women who are going through the menopause, it's not necessarily about doing an hour. 15 minutes is enough to help alleviate any of the symptoms. So, even just a 15-minute walk. It is activity, like we've talked about. It doesn't, have to be a whole hardcore hour, 2 hours. That I think, again, we sort of get sucked into thinking that if you don't do any less, well, you're not worthy.
So I would say that to kind of start wrapping this up a little bit, what would your kind of key advice going into January, like one top tip that you would want people to bear in mind as they go into this?
Is be happy. Enjoy it. Don't waste your energy doing things you're not particularly enjoying. Be that dieting, be that a hardcore HIIT class. If it's not bringing you pleasure, think about an alternative, because we've got so many different exercise classes here. There's so much you can try, so many different instructors who all bring a different flavour to it. So, maybe mix things up, but enjoy it. That is my key message.
Would be my key message as well, is enjoy, and not just enjoy, but explore, which really touches on what you're saying. We have so much to offer, so many different classes, so just explore. And it could be this week, I'm going to try something different, and then next week I'm going to try something different. But gradually, over 2 or 3 weeks, you'll get into something that you think, actually, I like body balance, but I don't like spinning, and I like doing treadmill, but I don't like the resistance machines or something. So you find something you're into, and then gradually follow yourself that way. So rather than going in with a preconception of what you think you should be doing and what you could be doing and what you're not doing, so less of the anxiety and more of the joyfulness.
Yeah, my top tip is kind of slightly different, because I'm not a fitness professional in any way, shape or form, but my thing would be my advice to people who kind of are in this diet culture, disordered eating space, like there's that old adage of, you are what you eat. I would tweak that slightly and say you are what you consume, and there is so much content out there on social media and everywhere, and you can get stuck looking at the same thing all the time, the same types of bodies all the time, and that can really lead you to a place of feeling really unworthy about yourself. And what I would say is, like, broaden your horizons, broaden what you're looking at, do some research on this kind of anti-diet culture, because there are so many amazing people out there, and there's some brilliant books, and I can put some links to some resources on our website actually, and Joe, you've got some as well. They'll probably be really useful if people do want to go away and do a bit more sort of soul searching about all of this. But yeah, just like broaden what you look at, try and like go into the new year with a kind of renewed perspective on how things should be, how you should look, and what is accepted. So I think if more people started doing that, then society would actually be a lot happier for it in the long run.
Yes.
Look in the mirror and be happy with what you see. Look for the positives.
Yeah.
Particularly as women, I think we look in the mirror and go, well, my bum looks big in that, or look at that little tummy going on, and why not instead go, you know what, my hair's looking really good today, you know, and look for the positives because we've all got them, and embrace them and be happy.
And know that your worth isn't 100% about what
totally.
you look like, and you are a whole person that's not just a body. And that's
you know, look at what you achieve on a daily basis, what you manage to fit
maybe
in.
Joyful January could be, let's just take the watch off. Let's take the phone out the pockets. Let's just put that to one side. And that way, then just enjoy the exercise and get the feel for it before we start monitoring what we're doing.
That's a good point.
Brilliant.
That's a good point.
Well, thank you guys. I think this has been a really good talk, and I hope that this is something that we could potentially pick up again throughout the year. And I know that Joe and I especially have had lots of talks about these kinds of things and these kinds of topics. So hopefully we will see you again with some new topics. And if there's anything that anybody is listening and would like us to kind of cover or any more information on, then get in touch with us and subscribe to our channel.